Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 Sharma.
Hi, my name is Krishnan. I'll be doing the Hindu news analysis for the day. These are the 5 articles that are taken up for discussion. Towards the end, we'll see previous year questions. So the first article is about what's happening in Israel and what Israel is doing to Palestinians. So let us have a look at this article. So what has done, Israel has attacked few militant strongholds, that is few terrorists who are living in West Bank. So we'll see what is this West Bank or not, but now you just keep in mind. So where are these people? They are in West Bank, and Israel generally uses drones. So, but what they are telling is this is not just the normal thing which happens. This is a wide-scale military operation, and this is being carried out after 2 decades, because 2 decades back there was Palestinian Intifada, that is Palestinian uprising, and later things were all right, but now there will be skirmishes now and then. But now they are telling this is a very huge problem. So far 8 Palestinians have been killed. So troops stormed inside the refugee camp, and they are doing this operation. So all these things are here. Black smoke arose from crowded streets of the camp, because they were using bombs and all, and fires were exchanged between security forces and militants. And drones are always going to be there. If it is Israel, they are going to make use of drones. And electricity was cut off, and bulldozers were taken in through streets, because what will happen, they will bulldoze the house itself, because how urban warfare takes place, terrorists might hide inside houses and all, so they'll have military bulldozers, and they will keep bulldozing the house so that security forces can keep moving forward. So Israeli defense minister is telling the operation is proceeding as planned. So right now is not telling when this will end, but they are going to go with the plan. So since 14 hours they have been inside, even still the fighting was going on. And Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, who's army spokesman, said a brigade size force, that is in a brigade around 2000 soldiers will be there. So 2000 soldiers are taking part in this operation. So earlier this week airstrikes were going on in West Bank, but this airstrikes is now and then they'll have it, but since Monday series of strikes were going on since 2006. I mean, this is since 2006 this is a huge strike. So what is the Palestinian news agency WAFA telling? The military has blocked roads within the camp, and they've taken over houses and buildings, and they've gone to the rooftop, that is terrace, and they have set up snipers there. So what they are telling, the bulldozers are destroying the streets, snipers are inside, they are on roofs, drones are hitting house, and Palestinians are being killed in the streets. So this is what is happening in West Bank. So the Palestinian health ministry is telling at least 8 Palestinians were killed and 50 were wounded, and 10 of them are critical. So this is what I was going to tell. So where is the West Bank? West Bank is here. This is Israel. I mean, everything is Israel, but in West Bank you have a lot of Palestinians. This is Gaza. These two areas are being governed by Palestinians themselves. So the rest of the area is Israel, and this is called West Bank because here River Jordan flows, and this is to the west of River Jordan, so that is why it's called West Bank. This is Gaza. So what should you know about West Bank? So it's bordered by Jordan to the east, and there's a green line separating it and Israel on the south, west and north. So this is Gaza. This also we'll see. So here it is. Here only Hamas operates from here. You might have heard of it, Hamas, the terrorist organization. So why did people go there? Because when Israel occupied this place, 3/4 of Palestinian Arab population was displaced. In some cases, they were just sent away. They were expelled during Israel's creation, and most of the refugees, Arab refugees, they went to regional neighboring countries like Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and some went to the West Bank. which was under Jordanian rule back then, but now they have Palestinian Authority which looks after it. And a very large number of people went to Gaza Strip. So this is a tiny coastal strip between Egypt, and it is now between Israel. Today the population of Gaza is about 70% of Gaza's population are refugees. So that is a very sad thing, right? So this is what is going on in Israel right now. Who controls the Gaza Strip? It is Hamas. So who are Hamas? Most people see it as terrorist organization. So when did they take over? They took over in 2007. What Israel has done, there's a complete closure of Gaza's borders, and they said Gaza is an enemy entity. So who's doing it? Hamas has control over it. So US also sees Hamas as a terrorist organization. Now let us move on to the next article. This article is about digitization of the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has opened after summer vacation, and it was tech savvy, paperless, and free Wi-Fi was given for everyone. So and there are big screens for virtual hearings. Earlier it had wooden bookshelves with legal text which were haphazardly kept, but now all these have been removed, and you have swanky screens mounted on walls and desks. So the Supreme Court has called this design futuristic. They're telling all these digital enhancements are part of its green initiative for optimum use of technology in justice delivery system. So green initiative and optimum use of technology. So it is Chief Justice of India, Mr. Justice Chandrachud, who has steered the court into the digital age, and he has asked lawyers to give feedback. And funnily, the Chief Justice is asking lawyers to stick to their tablets or iPad rather than bulky paper files. And like slightly, this was ribbing senior lawyers like Kapil Sibal and Tushar Mehta. So these upgrades have been done only in the first 3 courtrooms, and eventually they'll do it for other courtrooms also. So what are the other enhancements? State-of-the-art digital video conferencing and sound system with facilities that connect to multimedia devices. What else have they done? LED video walls have been installed to increase the visual impact of the presentations, evidence, and video recordings. All this will create an immersive courtroom experience. There's something called as document camera. So what is document camera? They have installed to enable clear capture and real-time display of physical documents. So what this will do, this will facilitate seamless sharing of important legal materials, evidence, and exhibits. And there's another software also which is being developed. So what it can do, advocates can upload their reference material and citations relating to the matter. Next, what the Supreme Court is doing, it is coming up with a software to provide e-pass facility. So using this only, advocates and litigants can enter the premises. So this is also going on in other side. So now let us see a brief history on the advent of technology in judiciary. When did it begin? It began in the late 90s itself as a part of e-governance initiative, which got accelerated because of the IT Act 2000. So 21st century, it's technology century. So the focus was on digitizing the courts records and establishing e-courts across the country. So in the year 2006, e-courts were launched as a part of National E-Governance Plan. So far, what steps the court have taken? So when Justice Chandrachud was the Chief Justice of Allahabad High Court, he initiated a project to digitize 1 crore files in 1 year. And video conferring of cases was allowed in Krishnaveni Nagam versus Harish Nagam case. Video conferencing of cases. And live streaming of cases, constitutional and national importance. This was to the Swapnil Tripathi versus Supreme Court of India. So why would they do this? Because they want to ensure transparency and openness. And in 2021, Gujarat High Court became the first country in the court to live stream its proceedings. Later, High Court of Karnataka, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, and Patna followed suit. So right now there's something called as vision document for phase 3 of the e-court project. So this was introduced during the COVID-19 pandemic to address judicial digital deprivation. So in that, what they'll do, they'll have infrastructure for judiciary, that is digital infrastructure. So this shows the kind of impact the pandemic has had on judiciary. And the law minister has said that they'll be implementing e-court project in 2 phases, because there's a need to adopt cutting edge technologies. Using what? They'll be using machine learning and artificial intelligence. So this will increase the efficiency of the justice delivery system. So in fact, to use artificial intelligence, the Supreme Court has constituted an artificial intelligence committee. Now let us move on to the next topic. This topic is about NATO Plus, and the author here is arguing that India should not join NATO Plus. Let us see why he is arguing so. So in March 2023, NATO started focusing on South Asia and the Indo-Pacific region, and United Nations permanent representative to NATO, Julian Smith, said the NATO alliance is open to more engagement should India seek that. So reflecting the same sentiment, that is this US House Selective Committee on the Strategic Competition between United States and the Chinese Communist Party. So they are also telling the same thing. They told NATO should be strengthened. How do you do that? That you should have NATO plus framework by including India in the grouping. But India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar rejected this idea, saying that NATO template does not apply to India. So again, on the eve of Prime Minister's visit to the US in June, the caucus co-chair Mark Warner shared his plan and told India should join the NATO plus fold. So what is NATO? You all know it is a transatlantic military alliance of 31 countries, and most of them are from Europe. So after the dissolution of Soviet Union and the end of Cold War, many thought NATO would lose its relevance, because only if Soviet Union is there, NATO will be relevant, right? But fall of Soviet Union meant that NATO would go irrelevant. But what has happened? NATO has not only survived, but it is also expanded also, because countries like Finland are joining in, Sweden wants to join it, and in fact, after the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, NATO is getting much needed ground for survival. So what is happening? The NATO is becoming big and big, and some geopolitical analysts are telling Cold War 2.2 is on the offing. So that can also come about, like the geopolitical experts are feeling. So what is NATO Plus? NATO Plus is a security arrangement of NATO and 5 allies of the US, who are the very close allies: Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Israel, and South Korea. Using this, what they'll do? They will enhance global defense cooperation and win the strategic competition with the Chinese Communist Party. But you all know NATO Plus is not an officially recognized or established concept within the NATO itself. They're just using it in discussions and debates regarding the expansion of the alliance. So inclusion of these countries as members would require a very complex process of negotiation and assessment, because the NATO has a lot of principles, obligations, defense commitments, and so on. So earlier NATO focused on Soviet Union and Russia, but NATO Plus is focusing on containing China. So if it wants to contain China, automatically who it needs India. So, and India has a lot of disputes with China. So US feels India is the missing link in the framework, and India should join it. So from Indian perspective, what we would say, there are a lot of increasing regional security challenges. India joining the NATO Plus framework could help it. What are the types of help? Security umbrella it will get, and protection and deterrence against potential threats it will get. It will get access to advanced military technologies, intelligence sharing platforms, and interoperability also with other member states. So this in turn will do what? It will strengthen India's defense capabilities and modernization efforts. But here, the author is calling it as a bait. So he's telling this bait needs to be assessed in the larger context of India's strategic autonomy. So this is very important. See, first, if we get into NATO framework, it will annoy Russia and China. So with Russia, we have a very robust strategic partnership, and this has helped India in dealing with regional security challenges, and this has also helped India by because China keeps moderating its stance. So it has helped in two ways. But of late, what has happened? Russia is getting over dependent on China, that to post the war in Ukraine. So Russia remains a valuable partner, even though all these things are happening. Russia is still a very valuable partner. So if India joins within one stroke, its solidified strategic partnership with Russia will crumble. So what India should do, at one hand, it should balance relationship, and on the other hand, it should manage geopolitical consequences. So this is going to be a very significant challenge for India. So second, what the author is telling, like India would like to have US-led alliance system. It may be tempting because there are a lot of threats posed by China to India, but in the long run, it will ultimately be counterproductive only for India. Why this will happen? Because this will limit India's freedom of action, and it will prevent it from pursuing an independent policy towards China. So, and see, this is a time when India is having its own bilateral issues with China, right? And it has its own issues with China. It has its own strategy for the Indo-Pacific. So India should not follow the Taiwan strategy of US under the NATO plus, because it will further complicate India's security, and this will provide justification for Chinese to do a military build-up along the Indo-China border, that is the LAC border. And why India should not join? Because it has traditionally maintained a policy of strategic autonomy, and it works with nations and blocs based on its own interest. But what will happen if it joins NATO? NATO would require India to align to its defense and security policies. That is, India should abide by NATO's security policies, and it should follow its objectives and strategies. So this will undermine India's political autonomy. So, and what will happen finally? Non-aligned policy will get a quick death, and it can even strain relationship with neighboring countries and regional organizations, because people value India for its independent stand. So if India joins NATO, it will limit its flexibility in engaging with other regional powers. So what should be India's priorities? So India's priority should lie in addressing its own regional dynamics. So what are India's own regional dynamics? It should a set of security challenges such as border disputes, terrorism, and regional conflicts. But if you join NATO, some part of it will be addressed only. But what is NATO's real problem? NATO's real problem is not with Indian problems, right? So its policies and strategies will focus on things happening from Eurasia to the Indo-Pacific, and joining it will turn India's attention away from the pressing issues. So the author is telling NATO Plus will not be of much use to India. And finally, what is telling, India's posturing through the Quad, which is also called as Asian NATO as per China. So the author tells, this looks promising that NATO Plus bait. But what is uncanny is in both these discussions, China remains an elephant in the room. Now let us move on to the next article. This article is about the legality of Delhi Ordinance. So let us see what this ordinance is about. So what is this? This ordinance was promulgated by President on May 19, and it amended the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991. This takes away the services from jurisdiction of Delhi government. So what has happened earlier, the Supreme Court has specifically given a landmark judgment just 8 days before the amendment, telling services will be under Delhi government only. But what this ordinance does, this ordinance nullifies the judgment of the Supreme Court. So the court had found that if a government does not have control over its own officers, it would paralyze the governance, right? So the court is telling this was not the intention of the constitution makers when they incorporated Article 239 AA while giving special constitutional status to Delhi. So the court told that legislative and executive power over services such as the IAS or the joint cadre services are very important and relevant for the implementation of policies and vision of the Delhi government. So they told the administration of the region shall lie with NCTD. So what is the validity of the ordinance? So as you all know, the ordinance has nullified the court's decision And this has raised serious legal and constitutional questions. So the first question which arises is whether an ordinance promulgated by the president or a bill passed by the parliament can nullify a court's decision. And the Supreme Court has held in a large number of cases that since parliament does not possess judicial powers, it cannot negate the decision of the court without changing the basis of the decision. And the ordinance also has not furnished any ground for nullifying court's decision. The Supreme Court based this decision to bring the services within jurisdiction of Delhi government because it was based on the constitutional mandate contained in Article 239 AA, Clause 3, Subclause A, which states that the Delhi Legislative Assembly shall have the power to make laws with respect to any matters enumerated in the state list or the concurrent list, except the three that is except three that you all know, that is police, public order, and land. Since the executive power is coextensive with the legislative power of the Delhi government, it gets all the power to deal with the services. And in 2008 itself, the Constitution benches affirmed it, and now they have reaffirmed it. But again, what is happening? The law declared by the Supreme Court is being negated by the ordinance. How is it being negated? Because Section 3A of the new GNCTD Act says that notwithstanding anything contained in the judgment of any court, the Legislative Assembly shall not have the powers to make law with respect to any matter enumerated in entry 41 of the list, which means services. So these words clearly mean that the ordinance wants to nullify the judgment of the Supreme Court. So next, what people are telling is no authority is empowered to direct anyone, that an order of the court shall not have effect and shall not be followed. But this ordinance is exactly doing it. So, and since the ordinance does not give any new ground for nullifying the judgment, it becomes legally unsustainable as well. So what are they doing? They are taking away the services from Delhi government, and the ordinance is giving these powers, that is of posting and transferring and disciplining matters based on services, to an authority named National Capital Civil Services Authority, and it has chairman and 2 members. So obviously the chairman is the chief minister, and the 2 members of the chief secretary and home secretary. But the thing is, the quorum for this authority is just 2 members. So if it is just 2 members, we know what is it about. So without having the chief minister, the secretaries will take the decision. So this is what is the framework of this authority. So that's why they are saying all decisions relating to the posting, transfer, disciplinary issues, etc. will be taken by the 2 officers, and the opinion of the chief minister will not have any value. And all these decisions will be forwarded to the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, and his decision will be final. What kind of statutory body would this be, where all decisions are taken by bureaucrats and the opinion of an elected chief minister will be ignored? This is so far not at all done in any administrative history. And this provision also does not sit with the content of Article 239 AA, Clause 4 of the Constitution, which covers the powers on the Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister. So time and again, Supreme Court and the Constitution has told that it is the Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister who will be dealing with all administrative matters relating to governance of the Union Territory of Delhi, except the 3 items. And what are the other key provisions in this ordinance? It states that if the Secretary to the Council of Ministers forms an opinion that the cabinet decision is not in accordance with the law or rules of the procedure, he can bring it to the notice of the Lieutenant Governor. So what this actually means? It means the Secretary has the power to review the cabinet decision itself. So then what he'll do, he'll just refer the opinion to the Lieutenant Governor, who will reverse the cabinet's decision. So, and there is another provision which introduces a new procedure for summoning and proroguing a session of the assembly. So under the present constitutional system, who will convene a session of the legislature? It is the cabinet, right? And this is conveyed to the governor, who signs the summons. This is a practice followed in almost all countries where parliamentary system of government exists. But this ordinance is trying to change it. So under this new procedure, what is going to happen? Who will convene the assembly? The chief secretary will tell the Lieutenant Governor and he'll also ask the Chief Minister for their opinion before issuing summons. So Section C of the GNCTD Act says that Lieutenant Governor shall from time to time be able to summon the Assembly. How will he do? Based on the advice of Council of Ministers. So he cannot decide to summon the House on his own, whatever be his opinion. But who should be doing this? The Chief Minister and his ministers only collectively should be summoning the House. So therefore, it is wrong to provide for seeking the opinion of Chief Minister of the or the Lieutenant Governor before the summons are being issued. If you are analyzing the key provisions of the ordinance in terms of Article 239 AA as well as GNCTD Act 1991, it is not found to be in conformity with the Constitution. And in fact, Article 239 AS Clause 7 empowers Parliament to make a law to supplement the provisions contained in that article. So, to supplement the provision does not mean you make contrary provisions, right? And Parliament has not been given any power by this article to make any new law conferring powers on the Lieutenant Governor with respect to the administration of Territory of Delhi. Similarly, it also does not empower the President either to make law conferring powers on bureaucrats to review the decision of the Cabinet or vote of the Chief Minister in matters of posting, transfer and disciplinary action. So in total, we can tell that the ordinance itself stands and suffers from serious legal infirmities. That is, legally it is not sound. Now let us move on to the next topic. This topic is about environmental financing. So this is called as global stocktake. Like who is emitting how much and how much is needed for mitigation. So that is called stocktake. So the Bonn Climate Change Conference was the last big milestone when it came to climate negotiations. Because the first negotiation was the first global stocktake was under the Paris Agreement at COP 28. So when did this happen? This happened in Dubai this December. So this global stocktake is mandated under Article 14I of the Paris Agreement. So what they'll do is, this is to assess the collective progress towards long-term global goals. So what does this include? It includes greenhouse gas reduction, building resilience to climate impacts, and securing finance to address climate crisis. So the outcome of the global stocktake will inform countries on how to update and enhance their actions. So in 2015, under the Paris agreements, what countries had agreed? They had agreed to pursue efforts to limit global temperature rise to below 1.5 degree to 2 degrees Celsius, right? So the Bonn conference was held to emphasize on restricting global average temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius as compared to pre-industrial levels. So what the two agenda? Mitigation pathways compatible with temperature goal and climate finance flows from developed countries to developing countries so that they'll be able to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. But these two things remain point of contention between developing countries and the environmental integrity group. So what is this environmental integrity group? It is the environmental group represented by the European Union. So what signal did we get from Bonn conference? It was the developing countries also should be more ambitious in their emission reduction, because they are telling not just developed countries, developing countries also should limit their rise in global average temperature. So what is the just transition pathway? So on June 14, climate change negotiators arrived on a compromise on one of the aspects which relates to just transition pathways. So what they'll do is they'll focus on what each country can do. So how is India's climate policy is derived? It comes from the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, right? So we have a long-term low emission development strategy. So we have underlined the need for financing a just transition. We are focusing on energy and transport. So we are telling if you do that, by 2070 we'll reach net zero emissions. So what does just transition mean? The transformational pathways have to be carried in a way that it is fair and inclusive as possible. So inclusive means all the countries it should take into account. So India is concerned about the difficulties it is going to face in decoupling its economic development from greenhouse gas emissions. So it's not just the problem of India, for China and other developing countries also. So India is telling this should be this route should be just a transition, and it should be clubbed with the means of implementation also. So the adoption of the just transition pathway is there in the draft text of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change subsidiary body of implementation. So countries feel this is a bottom-up approach. So this was inserted in the Paris Agreement with the idea of allowing developing countries. So developing countries have special needs and circumstances, right? So this will align their low-carbon development pathways that integrate socio-economic components in line with their state development priorities. So in the bond negotiations, developing countries were able to strengthen the just transition pathways as opposed to the developed countries, which laid more emphasis on mitigation. So just a transition will also help parties in respecting other soft obligations emanating from the Sustainable Development Goals of 2050 and International Labour Organization guidelines on just transition. So how finance will be mobilized? It will flow from not aligned with priorities identified by countries in the nationally determined contribution. So it will involve international monetary transfers, and it will be a highly contested area. And many observers are telling only a fraction of $100 billion has actually been given by developed countries to developing countries. And this adaptation finance has lagged behind mitigation finance because there is no universally agreed upon metrics. So what happened at the conference? The Environmental Integrity Group insisted on mitigation work program to be yielding the finance. So this is a move to somewhat digress from the transfer of major portion of international public finance from developed countries to developing countries. So the objective of the mitigation work program as per the COP26 mandate is to urgently scale up mitigation ambitions and implementation in this decade in a manner that complements the global stocktake. So this program will work along a number of lines, which could include organizing workshops to identifying policies and technologies that are actionable solutions. So in the efforts towards aligning climate finance with Paris Agreement temperature goal, it is important to integrate World Bank also in climate change negotiations, because then we can hold World Bank also accountable, because the World Bank is making a lot of investments in fossil fuels. So therefore, whatever we do with respect to global stocktake, it should go as per Paris Agreement needs, and it should comply with the principle of equity, justice, and fairness. So let us go on to previous year questions. Which one of the following assumes importance in being a good link between Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats? The answer is Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve. So equality in a society is the absence of privileges. Easy question. So what are the differences between Rigvedic Aryans and Indus Valley people? Rigvedic Aryans use the coat of mail and helmet in warfare, whereas the people of Indus Valley civilization did not leave any evidence using them. So this is right, this statement. Rigvedic Aryans knew gold, silver and copper, whereas Indus Valley people knew only copper and iron. This is wrong. Rigvedic Aryans had domesticated the horse, whereas there is no evidence of Indus Valley people being aware of this animal. So this is a controversial statement, but according to NCERT, this statement is right. So the answer is option C. Which of the following gives global gender gap index? This is a very simple question. World Economic Forum is the right answer. So that's all for today. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Telegram, and Facebook. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you again tomorrow.